Exactly 2 years ago, I quit my $80,000 a year job as a detective after I learned this one thing. Hey, what's going on, guys? Marvin here. Welcome back to another video. Make sure to subscribe if you guys haven't done so already. Turn your post notifications on so you guys don't miss any of my future videos. And make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it does help the channel grow. So I've been asked this question throughout my entire time here on YouTube. What's my story? What did I come from? What did I do before? And how everything led up to, to where I'm at today. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I'm going to tell you exactly, from start to finish, how things went and what made me decide to leave that job behind, go all in on my business, and how did it turn out. But real quick, before we get into my story, make sure to stay until the end because I have a surprise for you guys that I think you guys are really gonna like. So make sure to stay until the end so you guys can know what that is. All right, so let's get started. So my story, who is Marvin? What did I do before that? Where did I come from? Did I come from a bunch of connections? Did I, have a business mindset? Did I have business oriented parents or anything like that? And the answer to that is absolutely not, right? So I actually come from two immigrant parents. They immigrated from Mexico. Both my parents, believe it or not, I'm 100% Mexican. And yes, I'm very well aware that the name Marvin isn't a traditional, Mexican name. But yes, I do speak Spanish. I'm fluent in Spanish and English. I get that question a lot, but fluent in Spanish and English, immigrant parents, straight up 100% Mexican, nothing else. All their stuff is all documented and legit now. That happened. They got all their paperwork done, years and years later. We didn't have a lot of money, and I'm not complaining or anything like that. Not at all. It's the complete opposite. I didn't care that we didn't have a lot of money. I was a super happy kid, and this was normal life for me and all of my friends in my circle. They all lived the same life that I did. Our parents worked in similar jobs and they made similar amounts of money, and that was normal life. That was normal life. Nobody ever complained. I never looked at it like, oh my God, I was poor. It's just, that's just how life was. That's all I knew. I didn't really start thinking about it until, later on when I, became an adult and I really got into, learning about money, making money outside of your traditional job, that I really started to look at, how I grew up and what our finances were, and the situations that we were in. But the point of that is no connections, no business mindset. I don't think anybody in my family, not just my immediate family, but my extended family, ever went to college. A bunch of them didn't graduate high school. A bunch of them went to prison. I don't think anybody really got like a really great job that I know of. So no connections, no nothing like that. No, definitely not rich parents. So let's fast forward. Once I graduated high school, didn't have any clue what I wanted to do, but I hated high school. I hated school in general, just going to school and having to do a bunch of homework and doing all that stuff. It just wasn't what I wanted to do, right? I wasn't like an A plus student, an extraordinary student or anything like that. I just did enough to get by. And then I went to community college basically because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had zero clue what I wanted to do with my life going forward. And the thought of, I have to pick a field or pick a career that I'm going to do for the rest of my life was incredibly hard for me to decide, what am I going to do? So while I was in community college, I stumbled across, law enforcement. They had a law enforcement academy there. And that's what I decided to do. So I'm like, all right, this seems pretty cool. No desire whatsoever to become a cop or anything like that. But I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. I'll give this a shot. Went through the 6-month academy, graduated, got picked up by a sheriff's department right out of graduation. And then I started, my law enforcement career at the age of 21. So I did 5 years in law enforcement. And like I said, I started at the age of 21. 4 years of that was on patrol, and 1 year of that was in investigations detectives. And throughout my time in law enforcement, I handled a little bit of everything. Vehicle pursuits, foot pursuits, fights, gang cases, dope cases, homicides, robberies, home invasions, big cases, as well as a lot of the petty, smaller cases. A lot of my cases were handled, at the county level and county court and all that stuff. And some of my cases, the FBI got involved and it grew up to the federal level, how to go to federal court and all that stuff. So needless to say, I handled quite a bit of things, during law enforcement. And I was exposed to a lot at the age of 21, things that like the real world, like let's be honest, the real world and how bad things can really be and how evil people can really be in certain situations, certain people. That's just the world that we live in. And the majority of people, I would say 99% of the people will never know that world unless you're in it. So throughout my time there at the sheriff's department, I made it onto the sniper team. I was on our agency's form of the SWAT team. And then I got promoted up to detective at age 24. And if I would have stayed there a couple more years, the possibility of becoming a sergeant or a supervisor was definitely realistic in my future being there. Now, the reason I tell you all of this is because I definitely had options, right? I could have made this a career and it paid fairly well, $80,000 a year, while I was in detectives. That's not bad money, and I could have made it a career. I could have worked there for the next 30 years if I wanted to. So I had that option. And especially, coming from where I came from and making and just growing up around such little amounts of money, 80,000, that's a lot of money. You know what I mean? So I definitely had options to pursue that as a career path and have a very safe and secure monthly paycheck coming in, for me and my family. So now that you know a little summary of my life and how I got to that point, I got to go back a couple of years so you can understand why I ended up quitting that job, that $80,000 a year job, why I decided to call it quits, and I never looked back. But before we get into that, I just want to make it very clear that I'm not disrespecting, the law enforcement career. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not knocking the career field. I think it's an incredible career field if that's what you want to do. Many people that I worked with, they lived and breathed, being in law enforcement. That's what they wanted to do their entire lives. Me, honestly, I decided to do it, at a whim because I had no other options. I didn't know what else to do. And it just wasn't the career that I wanted to pursue, for the rest of my life. But it's a very noble and selfless career, and this is just my personal experience with it. So my first 3 years in law enforcement, I absolutely loved it. Running and gunning, doing the Lord's work. It was so much fun, and I could see myself doing that for the next 30 years. That's what I would tell myself. I was like, I could do a whole career just being on the road and doing patrol. Like I enjoyed it that much. But then after that 3-year mark, I quickly got to the point where it was no longer fun to work weekends, graveyard shifts, swing shifts, missing holidays, missing weekends, missing events, missing my life. I felt like I was missing so much of my life because so much of my life was dedicated to that job, and I was just working so much on top of overtime, and it was just so much that I started to dread it. And I know, like I said, there's a lot of law enforcement that watches this channel. A surprising amount, to be honest, that message me and say that they're currently in law enforcement. They want to start their own business. And if you are in law enforcement, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your regular shift on top of overtime, on top of if you're on call, if you're on a special assignment like detectives or narcotics, that's your life. That job is your life, and you will spend more time there than you will spend, with your family at certain points in your career. So when I got to that point, I just hated it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I felt like every time I was coming to work, I was missing my life. My life was going on, and I was like, I'm stuck at work, and I just don't want to do this anymore. I got to the point where I just didn't want to do it. I was dreading it. I needed to find some other way to make money, or at least find another job that was a more consistent schedule, because my schedule was constantly changing. As soon as you get comfortable with one schedule, they change you, their shift change. Maybe you'll go to nights, maybe you'll go to days, maybe you'll have the weekends off, maybe you'll have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, constant change. I wanted something a little more predictable and something that I could, spend more time with my family or whatever I wanted to do. So then one day on patrol, 2 things happened that completely changed everything. So I got tired of listening to the radio, so I started looking into audiobooks, and I'm like, all right, maybe I can, learn something here or learn something to make money with or whatever. And I remember somebody mentioning a book called like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it was like back like years and years before. I don't know why I just remembered it. So I was like, all right, I'll look to see what that is, right? So it was this book, but it was an audio version of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. After I listened to it all in one day, between calls and then on my way home. And then while I was at home, I was just listening to the book and just soaking it all in. And my mind just started going like a million miles an hour. I was just like, there's really other ways to make money other than just your traditional job. And I know now and nowadays that seems so common sense, right? So everybody knows about it. You see all these ads and everybody is always promoting it. But back then, that wasn't around. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like it's like it is today. I didn't even know entrepreneurship or the entrepreneurship niche on YouTube even existed. Less than half of the people that are on it right now were doing it back then, a few years ago. So my mind's going a million miles an hour, right? And then the next day I come back to work. I pull up YouTube. I was going to watch, I was looking for a song or something so I can play while I was driving. And this video comes up of Graham Stephan. For those of you guys who don't know, Graham Stephan talks about finance, real estate. He's in the money space on YouTube. He's closing in like 2 million subscribers now. But back then, I think he had only like 10,000, maybe 20,000. And his very first video pops up. Something like, how I became a millionaire at the age of 26, or real estate made me a millionaire at age 26, something like that. He ended up taking that video down, but it was his very first video, if I remember correctly. And then here I see this guy, and he's similar to my age, and he's talking about how much money he's made, talking about the concept of passive income and all of these things that are so foreign to me that I've never heard of in my life, that I never even knew it was possible. That video alone changed my entire life. To say that my mind was blown would be an understatement. Like, keep in mind, like, I'm a small town kid. Like, I grew up in a small town. My world was very around like work. And then when I got into law enforcement, that's all I knew. Anybody that I worked with, that's all they knew. So the concept of, you can go create your own business, you can get into real estate, you can make money, and then you can do things so you can be making, residual income, passive income. My mind was completely blown, and I was never the same after that. I went down the rabbit hole into the entrepreneurship niche and learned so much and just soaked up so many things. And I even more so than ever, I just like, okay, now there's the options, right? I have options. That's what I learned. I learned that I have options, not just my traditional 9-to-5 job. And I started going down the rabbit hole, soaking everything in. Even more than ever, I wanted to create something so I could leave my job. So now let's fast forward to when I find out my wife got pregnant. She tells me she's pregnant, and now I'm like, okay, I have this kid coming into the world. I hate my job. I hated it so much. I dreaded it so much that I could feel it affecting my personal life, my relationship, because I just didn't want to be there. I just wasn't happy. I was miserable. So that desire to find some way to make money outside of law enforcement amplified by 10 when I knew, my kid was coming into the world. So I got into detectives. They promoted me, and my schedule was insane. Like, I would wake up, go to work until 4, ideally, if I didn't have any overtime, get home, spend a couple hours with my wife. 8 o'clock rolled around, go straight into my office, work until 12 or 1. On the weekends, I would work a little bit later, wake up at 6, do it all over again. So I would get a little bit of sleep, but I would constantly be working every single day, 7 days a week, because I was so determined. I was so driven to make this work. I was like, I know I'm going to make this work. I have to make it work. I can't just be here. I'm not going to be miserable for the rest of my life, because, in law enforcement, everyone's always talking about retirement. Right before I put my 2 weeks in, my lieutenant comes into my office at work, and it's me, my lieutenant, and my sergeant, and they're talking about retirement. My sergeant's like, oh, I have, 15 more years or something like that. And my lieutenant's, he's about to retire, and he's like 50 something. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to retire, and then this, and that. And then when I'm 62, I'll get my Social Security. So it'll be another pay bump and all this stuff. And I started looking at how much time I had left. I had 31 more years, because I could retire at age 57. 31 more years. I'm like, I'm not going to be here for 31 more years. Like there's no fucking way that I'm going to be here for 31 more years. What am I going to do when I'm 57? Like, yeah, you still have plenty of life left, but I wanted to enjoy life now. I don't want to enjoy life when I'm 62. I don't want to enjoy life when I'm 57. Like, I want to enjoy my life now. I want to spend time with my family now. I want to spend time with my son and now my daughter. I want to spend my time with them. So back to me starting this business. I was so driven. I was completely laser focused, tunnel vision 100% that I was going to make it work. There was no other option. So that's why I was willing to put the time in, because I wanted to make it work. I knew it was going to require work. So now fast forward quite a bit of time later on, my son is born, and that feeling that I told you I had when I found out my wife was pregnant, amplified me by 10 as far as my drive goes. When my son was born, it amplified my desire to leave my job times 1,000%, just because I didn't want to miss his life. But I knew that if I stayed at this job and I stayed in detectives, or even if I, moved up, I was going to miss so much. I was going to miss so much of his life, so much of my life. And it's like the drive that I had inside of myself to make it work had never been higher. And at this time, I was having some success, small success with, arbitrage, and I was dabbling in private label and dabbling into wholesale. Kind of around this time, I started dabbling more so into wholesale and taking that more of a priority, and completely left arbitrage and private label. So my business started to grow more and more, because I was just focusing on one thing instead of trying to focus on everything, trying to focus on arbitrage, private label, and wholesale. Completely wrong way to do it. So I just focused on one thing, which was wholesale, and my business started to grow. a lot faster. And this was the time that I took the biggest risk of my life. I had some success with wholesale. I was, definitely making some money, but it wasn't enough to comfortably be like, oh, well, I can replace my income. No problem. I have nothing to worry about. It wasn't like that. It was such a big risk. It was so early in the game for me to quit. But, I had such determination, such confidence that I was going to make it happen. So I burned my boats. April 30th, 2018, that was my last day. Turned my 2 weeks in, 2 weeks before that. Said, hey, thanks for the ride, but I'm gonna go try to do something on my own, try to build a business. It was so weird. Like I had ups and downs throughout those 2 weeks because I was like, yes, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this happen. And then it was also low. It was like, oh shit, am I really doing this? Like, am I really about to take this huge risk? And to put that risk into perspective, it wasn't like I was living at home with my parents and I'm taking this big risk and I can always go back to my mom or dad and be like, oh, I'm still here. I'm going to go do something else. This didn't work out. No, it wasn't like that. I had a wife. I had a son at the time. I had a mortgage. I had car payments. I had bills. I had debt. I had everyday expenses, monthly expenses, just like every single one of you guys out there that has those monthly expenses. And I had people counting on me. This was a big risk. It wasn't like, I'm in my early 20s, I'm in college, and I'm going to go, try to take this risk. It wasn't like that at all. But I knew if I burned my boats, backed myself into a corner, that I was going to make it happen. No matter what, there was no other option. You have to make it work. Like, unless you're going to go back to law enforcement, which is a huge process to get picked up again, you have to make this work to have some money and to keep providing. So, backed myself in a corner, completely burned my boats. And there was only one option, which was to make it work. And keep in mind, guys, I didn't start this business with a partner that I could rely on, or a partner that, brought a huge amount of capital that, we were able to grow together. I didn't start with any connections that, knew the game in and out, that was able to show me the way. I didn't start with any loans. No family members lent me any money. I couldn't rely on my mom or dad or go running back to them if it didn't work out. It wasn't like that at all. So I, like a lot of you guys watching, I wanted to start this business while I was working, while people really depended on me. And that's what and that's how I was able to make it work. But it wasn't like a part-time, college job, working, cleaning windows or anything like that. No, I know what it's like to really work in the real world, just like the majority of you. I know what it's like to have people depending on you, just like a lot of you guys, right? It was a huge risk. It was a huge risk. Now, am I telling you to go quit your job? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just telling you, what I did and what worked out for me. But take it from someone who's been there. If you want to make this business work, or you want to make any business work, you need to commit. Commit 1000%. Interest alone is going to get you nowhere. If you're interested but not committed, it's never going to work. You need to be committed 100%, regardless of your circumstances. You can still make it work. So I have a story of how I quit my job. I had some success with wholesale, but not the success that I would say, I'm super comfortable quitting my job. No, not at all. But definitely had some success that made me confident enough that I'm like, all right, it's time to go all in and make this work. And that's what I did. And then, months and months down the road, started a YouTube channel, started helping people. And, that's where we're at today. Now the YouTube channel's been around for over a year. And it's growing every single day. Couldn't be happier. Super free in my life. Definitely not where I want to be. Am I making more money than I would have at the sheriff's office? 100%. 100% making more money, but I know what kind of work I put in to make sure that was a possibility and to make sure that became a reality. There's so much work to be done if you're going to create a business. Don't think that, you're going to be like, I'm going to create a business and it's going to be, stress-free and you're not going to hit any bumps on the road. No, it's going to require a ton of work. But if you guys are committed 100%, you're going to make it happen. Now I'm super free, nowhere near where I want to be as far as my business goes, but I never have to miss anything with my family, with my son, with my daughter, none of that. I'm always able to do whatever I want and then still be super committed to my business and growing my business, growing my personal brand. But yeah, guys, this is my story. This is how I came from super broke immigrant parents, law enforcement, detective, quit my job, went all in on Amazon FBA, and this is where we're at today. So if you guys have any questions, leave them down below and I'll answer them. And for those of you guys that made it to the end, like I asked you to in the beginning, I do have a surprise for you guys. Now I know that we are in uncertain times, but there is no better time to start your business, like I've talked about in other and other videos. So if you guys want to know what led to me being able to quit my job and what I did and what I found success in, which was Amazon wholesale, then I encourage you guys to check out my mentorship program so you guys can work directly with me. So because today is so symbolic for me, you know, April 30th, the day I took that leap of faith, quit my job, left all of that behind, built my business. Because of that, I'm going to do a $1,000 giveaway. So if you guys buy my mentorship program, the one-on-one lifetime mentorship today and today only for the next 24 hours actually, so you have a little bit of time tomorrow. Anybody who buys the course within the next 24 hours, the lifetime mentorship, I'm going to enter you into a raffle so that you can win the course completely for free. I've done this in the past a few months ago. I promised you guys I was going to do one giveaway. I ended up doing 2 giveaways, and you know, everybody benefited from that. So if you buy the course within the next 24 hours, you're going to be entered into a giveaway to win it completely for free. You know, if 1 or 2 people buy it, then your chances are very, very high. But I want to give back. You know, this business, I love this business so much because it gave me so much freedom. You know, that I want to, you know, pay it forward and help one of you guys out. If I can help just one of you guys, that would be amazing. These are some of my students. These are the results that they're getting. So you guys can know that this mentorship is legit. 100%, no VAs, no group coaching, no weekly Q&As or anything like that. You're getting 100% direct contact with me through the lifetime mentorship. Here's some of my students, like I said, and I hope to see you guys in there. So again, 24 hours, purchase the course. Within the next 24 hours, you're automatically entered to win a free course giveaway, and then you guys can start building your business just like a bunch of my students are already doing. All right, guys. So if you guys like my story, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and I will see you guys in that next one.